Yo, back with episode number 5 of my prep series. So I'm only 8 weeks out now, so it's starting to get pretty rapid. Last week I spoke about the tips and tricks that I'm using to stay on my diet and the tricks that you can do to get more shredded on your diet and help you stay on the track. If you haven't seen that, you can give that a watch just there. So this week I'm going to get into my check-ins and I'm going to show my posing routine, and what everyone wants to know is the routine for growing big juicy calves. So without any further ado, I'm going to go straight into the check-ins. So yeah, if you've been following along, then you will know that the last week or two I've been coming in at my lightest and the shreds are coming along as planned. So this week I was 85.1, last week I was 85.3, so I'm still moving the right way on the scale. The side shots are looking good. You can see the obliques coming through quite a bit now. The vascularity is still improving. Again, these are morning shots, dry, flat. The back shots, the insertions in the back are looking a little bit deeper. The Christmas tree is starting to come out even further, which is what we want to see. So I'm still on the just under 3,000 calories as on the same diet that I said before, the same water intake and the stepper 4 times a week for 30 minutes. That's all stayed the same, purely because the scales are still moving in the right direction. So we'll see how that goes. At the moment, I'm actually doing check-ins on twice a week now. So I'm doing a Thursday morning and a Sunday morning. I'm not going to put both of the check-ins in my photos, in my videos, because you don't need to see both really. I'll just carry on putting the Sunday ones in. But that just helps me and the coach track it a little bit better. Well, now I'm going to put up a video from Monday's session of my posing routine. I haven't actually shown a full run through of my posing routine, so this will be the first time that I'm kind of pushing it out. I feel like I don't really need to hide it at this stage in the game. I don't need to hide my routine or anything that I'm doing from other people, because I'm literally at the spot on the map at the minute. But yeah, this will give you an insight as to what my conditioning looks like in a sort of gym setting with a little pump on. And as you can see, I look a little bit different. And if you've seen some of the shorts or whatnot from before, the posing is starting to look a lot better. It's either I'm improving on the posing, or that because I'm getting leaner, the posing itself actually looks a lot better. It's probably a slight mixture of both. This will be my individual posing routine for my show, which is 1 minute long. I'm yet to actually have any posing sessions from anybody, so any critique in the comments is welcomed. Hopefully you enjoyed that little insight to the posing routine, give you a sort of a look as to how I'm going to be conducting things on the stage and my sort of style. As most of you know, I am going for a classic look over anything. That's my preferred. That's just what I'm into. I'm into the small waist to wide shoulder ratio, the more aesthetic looking category. Right, now for the main event, the thing that everybody wants in life is the big juicy calves. Just before I share the ultimate calf growing regime, I just want to point out that just like any other muscle group, genetics do play somewhat of a part, and I wasn't blessed with the worst genetics from Buster Senior in the calf department, I'll be honest. That, coupled with the fact that when I started my journey back when I was a kid, I was hammered with the idea of doing calves as much as possible, because it was drilled into me that you could literally train calves every single day and still get the growth benefit, and you won't be able to overtrain your calves basically. It's just like an old school mentality sort of thing. I still agree to some degree with that analogy, as I'll explain later on. However, also what I used to do, which is pretty weird for kids to do, but when I was like waiting for a bus, for example, I'd be on the edge of the curb doing calf raises, or in my old job as a lifeguard, I'd be standing on poolside doing calf raises. Now that might not have attributed to much size right now in the later days, but if anything, it would have given me a better mind to muscle connection for these later days to then be able to train them better, if you get where I'm coming from. Having said that, even if you have the calf genetics of a slug, I guarantee you, if you follow and smash everything on this calf regime, your calves definitely will grow. No offence to any slugs out there if you're watching. So as I'm a bit sad with these things, I actually researched the scientific way to utilise calf growth. So what does that look like? That looks like training your calves every other day or 3 times a week on average, your calves and your abs are more acclimatized to the everyday battering. So theoretically you can train them more frequently. Talking reps, for each calf session you want to be aiming for around 70 reps per session. So that looks different every time. None of my calf workouts are really exactly the same. So I'm not sticking to the standard 3 sets of 12. It could be 3 sets of 15, then 1 set of 10, or it could be 3 sets of 10, 1 set of 20, and then drop down and do a set of 10 as like a drop set. It's just different every single time. However, one thing that does remain is the intensity. So at the end of each calf session, like say for the last set, I will go to failure. That doesn't necessarily just mean keeping the weight the same and just pumping out as much as possible. Sometimes I can do that. More often than not, it'll be a drop set where I'm doing my working sets with a certain weight, and then on the final one, when I get to the 12th or the 15th rep, I can't do any more, I'll then drop some of the weight off, almost to half sometimes, and I'll pump out as many as I can on that lighter weight, so as a little drop set. Or another good one is force reps, which I solely believe in, not just for the calves, but a lot of other things, where you get your training partner or someone in the gym. It'll only take 30 seconds, so you do your set with the calves, and then when you're basically finished and you can't physically press it up anymore, they will help you bring the weight up, and then you just control the negative back down, and you do that for an extra 5 to 8 reps, and yeah, it will just help break down that muscle tissue so much more than just stopping at what you think is your maximum. So now that you're training them 3 times a week on average, and you're hitting an average of 70 reps per session, you also need to think about the different variations. So it's pertinent that you mix it up between the bent-legged raises for the calves, like the seated machines, and between the standing variations where your legs are straight and you're doing the calf raises. So for a long time, when I was younger, I used to only do the standing variation. I used to like the machine version that you get in some of the old school gyms. A lot of the new gyms don't really have the standing machine one where you have the pads in anymore. To recreate that, I often use the Smith machine, which I still use now, but I used to only use the standing ones. And I'll go into why it's important to actually mix up and use both. But yeah, I was unaware that doing the 2 different variations was working 2 separate parts of my calf at the time. So if we want to get these big, well-developed calves, we have to first understand some of the anatomy of the actual calf itself. So I'm not going to go into it too much and bore you to death, but basically the calves themselves, as we know them, are actually a pair of muscles called the triceps surae, which are made up of the soleus and the gastrocnemius. The soleus actually sits under the gastrocnemius, and to many people's disbelief, it's actually the bigger of the 2.
Press into my toes, my soleus muscle, which is the second layer in your calf, is going to be working. So if you're going for big calves, you don't really want to do the seated calf raise, you want to do the standing calf raise. The standing calf raise is going to work your gastrocnemius. Check this out. When I come up here and lift up with my toes, you're going to...
Please don't listen to goons like this, because they have no idea what they're going on about. The soleus is actually a lot bigger in volume than the gastrocnemius, and he's literally trying to tell you to not grow your soleus, which is the bigger, for if you want bigger calves. Like, what? The gastroc, for short, has a medial head on the inside and a lateral head on the outside. The gastroc, unlike the soleus, inserts the femur at the top, and this is why bent knee variations need to be utilised. Just quickly, the main reason I see people not utilising their calf growing capabilities is because they use it as an accessory sort of exercise. So at the end of a leg day, they'll chuck in some calf raises and they'll just be going through the motions. They're not contracting the muscle fully, and I'll often see people smash like a leg day and they'll be putting a lot of effort into their squats and stuff, and then by the end of the workout they're just chatting away to people whilst doing their calf raises, and then it's like, yeah, 3 sets of 12, done, dusted. That's not how they're gonna grow as efficiently as they could. So why is the seated or the bent knee variations important? So when the knee is flexed, it's actually causing the gastroc, for short, to already be shortened, meaning that it can't flex as much as the soleus can, and that means that the soleus is actually taking most of the strain whilst doing the calf raises in this position. That's not just bro science, that's backed up by legit studies. So on the other side to that, where the gas drop is more important, would be all of the straight-legged movements. So you're talking the donkey raises, you're talking the standing calf raises, or the Smith machine raises, which you've seen as my favourite one. So for the Smith machine one, I'll use a big 25 kilo buffer plate on the floor, so I've got enough room, enough clearance for my heels to drop all the way down and create a long eccentric movement and stretch my calf as much as it can before pushing it all the way to the top and contracting at the top. So I have 3 quick tips for the reps themselves when you're completing the calf raises, whether it be seated or standing, however you're doing them, these need to be ticked. So first of all, number 1, I strongly believe that having your shoes off when you're completing the calf raises is key, because it allows you to fully contract your calf at the top of the movement and fully stretch on the eccentric movement. I see some people, when they're cracking leg days, wearing lifting shoes, which are okay for like squats and stuff, obviously, because it's got the flat platform, but because the platform is so flat and rigid, they're doing the calf raises and it's a struggle for them to get a full contraction at the top of the movement. And it doesn't just apply to the lifting shoes, it applies to all of them. If you would put it this way, for example, if you was doing your bicep curls and you put on elbow sleeves, you're going to be restricting the amount that you can contract that muscle, because the elbow sleeves are stopping the movement. That's the same sort of thing at the ankle for the calves. So secondly, I always control the negatives on the calf raises. I control the negatives for different muscle groups as well, but for today we're just talking about the calves. On the way down, you want to be going nice and slow on that eccentric movement and giving a full stretch. For a bicep curl, you wouldn't just stop at 3/4 of the way down, you'd stretch it all the way down and bring it back up again. So it's the same with the calf movement. More often than not, I'm seeing people also do the opposite. So they'll do the big eccentric stretch, and then when they come up, they only come up to horizontal. They won't be pushing all the way to the top as well. So you want to literally contract at the very top onto your toes almost. You want to be pushing up onto that top ball of your foot and squeezing the calf as to the point where you can't push up any higher because it's at maximum contraction, and not just stopping halfway. If the weight is so heavy that you can't get that full contraction, then drop the weight down. But tip number 3 is to definitely practice single leg calf raises. So this basically helps to diminish muscle imbalances. If you've played sports, or if you've been active throughout your life and you've then gone and done just solely double-legged calf raises, you're more than likely going to have a muscle imbalance, and your stronger leg is going to be doing most of the work. And if it's taking most of the load, it's probably going to be taking most of the gains. So you want to chuck in some single leg variations to basically even it out. I saw this firsthand myself. When I first done the single leg variations, my right leg was so much stronger than my left leg. So just going to go into my final point about the calves then, and that'll be foot position, which again is another old school mentality thing that was drilled into me from a younger age. Is if you have your feet pointing inwards, so your toes coming together and your heels out, you'll be hitting the medial head on the inside of the calf. And if you had your toes pointing outwards and your heels coming together, you'll be hitting the lateral head on the outside. Because I'm sad again, I've basically since then researched and read through multiple different studies to see if that's true or not, so you don't have to. But in short, I basically found that in a couple of the studies, there was no significant growth on either the medial or the lateral heads, depending on the movement of feet. And on one study from 2017, I found that the participants actually did notice a slight change. I still chuck them in sometimes every now and then, just because on the off chance it isn't doing any more harm than it is good. In conclusion, I would say that even if it is doing it, it won't be significantly changing it. So if you find that it uncomfortable, then just stick with the feet going straight and don't worry too much about going in and out. So I guarantee you, if you follow this exact regime and put in the effort which is required and follow all these little points that I've just mentioned, you will definitely get bigger calves and you'll be out of the no calf club. And for me, after 2 months, I had significant growth in my calves to the point where people were mentioning your calves look like they've been growing, even though they didn't know that I had changed this into this new routine, which was physical evidence and proof that it really had worked for me. So if you have any questions about this whole video, please don't hesitate to comment, to DM me. If you enjoyed this video and you've learned something, please hit the like button and subscribe to me if you want to follow me on my journey and keep on learning some more. Also, if you haven't seen my last episode, that'll be up there. And if you missed any of the other episodes from the prep series, that'll be just here. Next week I'll only be 7 weeks out and I've got some exciting stuff in the pipeline and I can't wait to share it with you. So until next time, let's make some gains. Boom.